What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today we have for you 7 common mistakes we see with a lot of new athletes who come in to train with us. So these are some key areas we want to start correcting right away. Hopefully you enjoy this video. Hopefully these can be of help to you. So if you do, please give the video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. We post new videos every Tuesdays and Thursdays, so make sure to subscribe to catch all of them. Hope you enjoy. I am going to start with one of the most obvious errors we see a lot, and this is for a squat, knees coming in, right? We see a lot of times when kids come into squat, they're here, they cave in, and they stand up. For a bunch of different reasons this can occur, right? But we wanna make sure that we're teaching good squat movement, good patterns, right? So we don't want those knees coming in. A lot of the times kids, or I'll say athletes, don't have great glute activation, especially from sitting down all day in school. So their glutes aren't fired up. In turn, this can often lead to the knees coming in as they're squatting down to stand up. When we produce force, right, to make any type of movement, we use rotational forces, right? So our body's utilizing that to help bring us up, that knee movement, if we can't generate enough force. Otherwise, if our movement pattern is flawed. So in order to correct this, a lot of times if you just give a simple cue, athletes, they can usually correct and adjust, or if you put them in front of a mirror, they can understand how they want it to look. You know, sit back in that chair, keep those knees apart. One that I like is pretend you're screwing your feet into the ground, right? And that just kind of forces the knees apart. So that's gonna be one of the most common mistakes that we see, one of the most obvious. So I wanted to put that number one, get that one out of the way. Number two, we are sticking with a traditional squat, but this one, our squat movement pattern is faulty due to often a lack of mobility, right? So whereas in the first one, it's those knees coming in, right? As I said, that can be due to a number of different reasons. One of the things that we're gonna wanna look at as to why those are coming in, obviously, like I mentioned, the glutes or a lack of adequate strength, but it can be due to poor mobility. So the body is trying to compensate by generating forces a different way. So we see a lot, number one, really bad ankle mobility. So people can't get down into this squat position because they have poor ankle mobility. So often, you know, we'll see the knees come in, we'll see them go here where their heels can't stay down, they can't shift backwards like that. They're very tall to where their shins stay perfectly vertical because they don't have that mobility in their ankles. Or we see tightness in the upper body that doesn't allow their torso to stay upright, so they end up squatting like this. Obviously that can be some hip stuff, some ankle stuff to get us into this position, but it can also be tightness throughout the upper body. So to work on this, we want to work on that mobility, opening up our athletes, right? I like to do some things with the band. Working on, for example, an overhead squat is a great way to see these movement patterns, right? Where we're here, if I'm tight, I'm gonna start pulling that way, as you can see my chest down. But right here, if I'm up, right, I'm not like the loosest person ever, so get a little bit tight. But when we're here, also too, you can tell if I have to push my butt out like that to compensate to get down versus just being able to squat as so. Little things like this, we can see a big difference in our athletes. And one of the best things we can do actually is elevate our heel. So we use a squat wedgie. I'm sure you guys have seen in the clips before, but we'll elevate the heel to force that angle of our athletes of that heel. You can also use a dumbbell. I'll show you with a dumbbell real quickly, right? If we're right here, elevating that heel. So now look at, as I squat down, that allows my shin to kind of come forward and to adjust the angle right there. So by working on little things like that, we can help fix our squat pattern. Number three, we are talking about our feet for this one. So one thing that we see a lot of times, and I will say this is, I think, a huge partly due to the shoes, the footwear that people wear, is our ankles will cave in as we're squatting or lunging, right? So by this, I mean, we come here to stand up, right? So you can see my feet, I'm here. I can't really do it all too well, right? But our ankles will collapse, they'll roll in. So a cue that we like to give is to keep your foot on the ground, right? The full foot. Get those pinkies down, because in order to get them up, right, my pinkies will come up in order to kind of push in that way. So we'll have pinkies down, right, pinky toes, Another thing we'll have people do is take their shoes off. So many shoes nowadays are absolutely terrible for athletes. They're too cushioned, they elevate their heels, they don't allow them to be in natural positions. So if we have too big of a heel, then that's going to, completely change our movement patterns. And also too, a lot of shoes are very narrow, so it makes the surface not ideal for athletes. It has their feet roll in due to all of these reasons. So a way we alter this is, like I said, keep your pinky toes down, take off your shoes and learn this movement pattern. Another big way is to strengthen the feet. So many people have really weak feet, so they don't have the ability to grab the ground with their toes, right? Grab the ground, lock in, pull yourself down, drive yourself up. We see it with lunging as well. Here, you can see I roll up on the inside of my foot. So my ankle comes in like that, right? Even if my knee's straight, I can come in like that, and that's gonna cause a whole bunch of problems. So we wanna start fixing this right away with our athletes. These next ones kind of go hand in hand. I am going to separate them into two separate categories, but the first one is there's an inability to load the knee. So we see this a lot with athletes, and a lot of it is due to the training that they have, right? It's very important that we teach the athletes how to load their glutes, load their posterior chain, how to push their hips back and sit, right? Take off some of the work from the knee. However, if we do so much to where that our athletes don't know how to load the knee, then when they go out and play, they're gonna be absolutely at a higher risk of injury. A lot of sports are played at high knee angles, really fast, require so much deceleration, and sometimes it will happen through that knee. So we have to be training our athletes to handle these forces, okay? So we can tell a lot of times if athletes can't handle, number one, if we do a basic rear foot elevated split squat, right? So we'll come down here. I'll move this so you all can see it a little bit more clearly. Doo-doo-doo. So right here, if I'm doing a rear foot elevated split squat, as I get down, right, if I can properly load my knee, I'm keeping my heel on the ground, okay? So heel stays driving into the ground. My knee is over my foot right here, and I drive straight up like this, right? I drive it straight up. If I don't have that ability, then out of this, I push back and up, right? I push back and up. I don't know if you can see that too well. Here, I go back and then up. I'm trying to offload my knee. That's a great way to work on it. You could put a foam roller in front of an athlete or even your hand, and you can just keep having your knee touch my hand the entire time, or that foam roller, because you're going up and down, right? Forcing them to get that knee through to work. Another great thing we can do is some type of step down. We'll run over here real quickly. We can go a bunch of different versions. We can go lateral step downs. We can go front on step downs, right? But being here, being able to load, tap, and stand. Being strong throughout, being able to handle quad strength is massive for this. Good quad strength, be able to offload some things, but this takes us into our other one, which is going to be our inability to load the knee during plyometrics. We see this a lot from athletes coming back from injury, especially knee injuries, and especially if they don't trust their knee. If we jump over this, right, and I decelerate by pushing my hips out that way, that means I'm not comfortable loading my knee. If I jump over and I'm like here, right, and I have to push back, I'm not comfortable loading. And you can usually see the differences between the two legs. I wanna be up, boom. I wanna be able to decelerate through my knee without having to push my hips to the side. Or even if I jump, I wanna be able to stay here without having to offset and utilize hips instead of the knee. It's very important that we are building strength everywhere and that we make everything be able to tolerate some load. So these are just a few keys. Number 6 is more of a neurological thing. So it is the inability to flex the musculature that we want to work. This one can be a lot more difficult, especially for younger, untrained athletes. The more trained you are, the more of an ability you have to flex the muscle or contract the muscle you're working, right? Like if I stand here, I can connect mind to muscle and I can flex my quads, right? I can flex my calves. I can flex my hamstring by just curling, my bicep right now. A lot of young athletes don't have that ability to connect mind to muscle. So when we are doing our exercises, sometimes that inability can make it a little bit difficult if I want athletes to focus on a certain thing, right? Like I can do a squat right here, 3 times, exact same movement pattern, but I can feel it in a different area each time. I can go here and I can actively just try to really use my quads. Now I can actively really try to use my glutes, right? Now I can really try to drive through my hamstrings. I can have different ways of doing stuff just by what I'm trying to connect my mind to my muscles. So like I said, when we have our young athletes, it's very important because if we're doing like a split squat variation, trying to load up that quad, I want these athletes to be able to fire their quad to feel it working. If we're doing an RDL, I want them to be able to feel it in their hamstring, their glute, in all these different areas. It makes it a lot better, it's safer. So this is a big thing, teaching young athletes, not even young, just teaching untrained athletes how to start firing the appropriate muscles, where you should feel certain exercises. This one's a game changer, and I don't think this one gets enough time spent on it. Number 7, I will say this one equally has to do with the athlete and the coach. And this one is not knowing when to regress the movement. We see this one a lot with newer athletes who are untrained or younger athletes. They do not want to regress the movement to something a little bit lower level. They want what's given, they want to be able to do it, and often if they can't, they compensate by doing it incorrectly, or they utilize other muscles in order to perform the movement that's stronger than what we're aiming for. So having that recognition, that self-awareness to say, you know what, no, this isn't correct, I need to drop it. And like I said, a lot of times this comes on the coach to realize, okay, you're doing this incorrectly, especially if they're young. Let's regress it. Let's learn this movement pattern. Let's learn to fire appropriately. Let's fix these little things. And then we progress it back up there. But so many times people don't want to regress. People are just like, nope, this is what we're doing. We're stuck in this way. A lot of times athletes don't want to, because if you get a really competitive athlete, chances are they're not going to want to do something a little bit lower level, right? That's a huge shot to the ego. But having that understanding of why we're doing this is the goal. Regressing it isn't necessarily a step back, it's just a different variation that's going to allow you to get to where you need. So for this last one, it is understanding, I'll just say self-awareness, knowing, hey, I can do more. Even like if we take this spin on it, a lot of athletes get comfortable, they get complacent. This feels good, this isn't uncomfortable. Athletes have to be able to work in that range of discomfort, right? Not necessarily pain or unbearable, but controlled discomfort. If I'm doing a landmine press, I don't know why that's the first example that came to mind, right? I can go a little bit more. It might be uncomfortable. It might, make me really work, but that's what's going to help grow. And on the other side, the main point is know when you're cheating the movement, know when that in order to get the adaptation I want, it's going to benefit me to take this other variation. So these are 7 common things that we see, ways to work around them. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Please give it a thumb. Please subscribe to the channel. I just completely slurred my words, but you guys know what I mean. We'll catch you in the next one.